Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. I'm Hilary Robertson. For this episode, I'm joined by singer Donna De Lory, whose album Gone Beyond is out now. This is definitely a pandemic lockdown album. Recorded in her home studio, it's actually meditative and serene. The album's constructed completely around De Lory's voice. She writes that she wanted a record that would be good for many different experiences. This album comes from daily vocal improvisations, taking away time signatures completely, no click tracks, no chord charts, and all the rest. So it's just a stream of consciousness. There's an amazing array of musicians accompanying De Lory on this album, including bass player Tony Levin, percussionist Jerry Marotta, cellist Jamie Sieber, guitarists James Hurra, Jerry Leonard and Greg Lights. Singer-songwriter Joseph Arthur is the only other vocalist on the album. I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation with Donna. Thank you for joining me on Harmonious World. I really appreciate your time.
Of course.
Now, Donna, you've got a fascinating history, which I want to talk to you about, but also, more importantly, I want to talk to you about Gone Beyond.
Yeah.
Because this is a fantastic album. It's very meditative, there's a real serenity about it.
And
it's definitely born from the pandemic, isn't it?
It definitely, I mean, I'd been, for a long time, my last record, Here in Heaven, there was a woman who I was in business with White Swan Records that is out of Boulder, Colorado, out of Denver, Boulder. And she always said to me, I need to do a meditation album. But on that album Here in Heaven, because I had, some more singer-songwriter, there's I think Sat Siri was the one Sanskrit prayer mantra in the album. So I was exploring different things. One, it was even in Spanish and everything. But she said, you have to put a meditative track on there. So at the end, I did a meditative track, and she said just 3 minutes, because people love to use your meditative your meditation songs for their practice, and maybe every album will have one. So she always was saying, you got to do a whole album like that. So I had that intention, but I really, I was out there doing festivals, and I was doing dance remixes and everything, and I wasn't yet in that space. I wasn't home all the time. So then the pandemic came, and my daughter was doing homeschooling. So I'd go up to the studio. We have a guest house that's up a steep driveway from our house. And I walk up there in the morning with my tea, and I just work until she had her lunch break. Then I come down and give her lunch and everything. So I worked on this record. And I think I'd mentioned before, and it's probably in my bio, about just layering vocals. I've always loved to record my voice and multi-track it.
Right.
So with Pro Tools and everything, you put down one, let's say you do Chama, one of those. It's just because of my professional training, being in the studio. I love being in the studio with my headphones. I kind of take one headphone off a little bit, and then I'll double it. Chama. Maybe I'll add a little more air, and it's so much fun. And then I get to 20 tracks, 30 tracks, and I'm having so much fun. And I mean, I could have just done all vocals, but I wanted, my intention was to be minimal. But then in the end, I reached out to Tony Levin, who's a master bassist. You guys know him from his work with Peter Gabriel, King Crimson. I mean, he is so incredible. He's been on some of my favorite tracks, like Don't Give Up, Peter Gabriel, Kate Bush, that whole album. So I just love his tone. He's amazing. He played on another album called The Unchanging. So he was home and he had nothing to do. He was like, yeah, I've got nothing to do. Just send me a bunch of stuff. So I kept sending him songs that I didn't even think I wanted bass on. And I thought, well, at least I'll have it. And then Jamie Sieber, who is an amazing instrumental artist. I mean, she's an incredible cellist. If you want to take a journey, like having a massage or healing, her music is amazing as well. Listen to that. So I reached out to her and she was home. So, I benefited from that. And so then it was so fun. They would just send me a link to the tracks and I'd press like download. They'd come up on my computer and then I would fly them into my session with all my vocals. And then Jerry Marotta played some like Native American drums on one song. But I purposely, I think I kind of mixed them lower than I would my other records and kept, just kept those vocal textures in there. And I wanted it to be simple. So even the Sanskrit, really simple, like Soham, I am that. It's all the same, it's me seeking the truth in that time and my own peace and ease in myself and bliss. And music's my bliss. So when I went to work on it, I was just, it was transcendent to be in the studio doing that. Things would come to me, then I would think, oh, I want to do that forgiveness prayer, that I love so much. So I kind of made that into a piece. And then there was a Mirabai poem, poet from I believe it's 1500s when she was alive, and she was a Krishna devotee and just a lover of Krishna, and wrote all these poems about her beloved. And the song Unbreakable that I wrote from that poem, Unbreakable by Mirabai, is the last track on the record. So it's just how I was feeling, and it's how I feel. It's that more meditative aspect of what I do and can do. And I even want to get more simple than that.
It was obviously recorded with deep thought, and it comes across as something that is both thoughtful in the creation, but also in what it gives you. And it gives you as the listener space to be thoughtful.
Yeah. And that's what I hoped for, that was giving me that space. And it's always so interesting when you're working on so many tracks at the same time. You put one track up one day and you go to another track and then you forget what you even did on that track, and I'll go in one day to do more harmonies. And then I realize, oh, I already did those, it's fine, And then I gave it to a mixer who I've worked with for so long, Kevin Killen. So he mixed it. There'd been new technology where I could click onto a link and I could hear him, just the audio of him mixing in real time.
Wow.
So I'd hear like when he, whoop, 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 he'd be like rewinding it to clean a vocal. So I could just like leave that on in the guest house and come and go and see where he was at with the mixing. And I just let him, I just trusted his ears, and I just said, just make it spacious. You don't have to use all my parts,
Right.
And then when I would just put my headphones on and listen to his mixes, I just got lost. It was just so beautiful. And there were a couple of moments that every time I heard that piece, like the forgiveness prayer, I would just cry. And it was just like such a release. And you only hope as an artist, as a creator, that people will be able to go to that space, that healing space and feeling space. And I love music that touches me that deeply. And I love music that makes me cry, and music that makes me laugh, but I've always been drawn more to that place of, that most sensitive, vulnerable place. Like I just love music that goes to that place and opens me up.
Yeah. And there's something, isn't there, about allowing yourself to be vulnerable. And when I say break down, I don't mean in a disastrous way, but right. to break yourself down to sort of something a bit more basic.
Absolutely. I always noticed, the just sound and vibration alone is so healing, so I always encourage people to sing. It's not about being a singer, being good, doing it for a living. We all were born with these instruments. And where we evolved from, way back when, in our tribes and our communities, we were always singing and dancing, and it was part of our lives and ceremonies and everything. And it's so healing. That in itself is so healing.
Yeah.
So I always encourage people to explore that part of themselves.
Yeah.
And it was, it was amazing healing for me doing those vocals, but also just when I sing, I notice when I do a concert at the end of it, it's also the exchange with the people of us singing together. I mean, it's been proven scientifically, all kinds of things, endorphins being released in your brain and other chemicals that unite you together. And so I just, like when I was recording that album, I definitely thought about people doing parts like Jama, where people could just, if not maybe singing out loud, they could just be singing in their own minds, if they wanted to have that practice versus just not saying anything and just being in meditation.
Yeah. One of the things I think that was hardest about lockdown was choirs and people singing together were banned, and it was like you're all going to be giving it to each other, and when that started back up again, because even as a member of an audience, when you're experiencing people singing together and they're listening to each other, because you can't sing with somebody else without listening to what else is going on. It's not quite the same as when you're playing a musical instrument, a physical instrument that you can, because when you play it in a certain way, that's what happens, whereas your voice is always going to be altered according to the dynamics and the pitch and the acoustics around you and everything. And I think that is a big thing, isn't it?
It was a really big thing. And to feel like, I remember I got together with a singer I worked with Madonna for years, Nikki Harris, and I still collaborate with her. And I remember like standing next to her at the mic recording vocals, and I hadn't been vaccinated yet. Had been, but she's like all over the place singing with people and very social and everything. But that feeling that I had to protect myself, and even being kind of afraid that because we were standing too close to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really incredible. I know we're all like moving on with our lives and everything, but the effects of what happened in that time are still with us in a big way. They are with me.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I got COVID like a month ago. So that was like getting it and getting over it was so freeing for me. And I have to say, like, I feel a lot more just liberated. I feel like I have more protection, and I feel I got through it. Of course it was a fear being amongst people and everything. And is my immune system strong enough? Can I deal with this? I mean, I was watching way too much media back in that time, to get all my information, but I also got a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just like, every day I think, oh, I could go here and play. And there's a big benefit going on in Boston for the Children's Hospital. In April, I want to be part of that. And,
right.
I'm really excited to jump up and sing with people and have sessions, choirs and in my studio, and have us all singing on the same mic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of like, can you do your part in Georgia and send it,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Technologically, I mean, we all realize we can do it that way now, which is great. It's so great for so many businesses, people that are doing, online singing classes or dance classes, fitness classes. They could be anywhere in the world. I'm so happy for them. They could be Costa Rica and they're doing their thing. But there's just nothing like that in person.
No.
Connection. I mean, we just, as humans, we need it so much.
Yeah.
And I just want us to never forget that. And I hope, when we do start going out and playing more live, the people are really there for it. And
yeah. I don't want to go too much into, I mean, you've got an incredible musical history. I don't want to go too much into that because people can find that out, it's all
right.
But you must be very proud of some of the stuff that you've done and the collaborations that you've done and that sort of thing. And where are you now in terms of taking all of that experience, and where does it bring you? Obviously this album came out at the end of last year. How are you building on everything that you've done, and what's next?
Well, I've always loved collaborations, you know, so I'm always looking to collaborate. There's a writer that I wrote my first like pop album, some songs with him, and I found an old song that we wrote that never was on the album because back then the producers picked out of all your songs what they thought the hits were going to be, and those were the ones they picked to produce. You know,
Right.
it was really coming from that's a hit producer, so whatever he wants to do, and they just want to do singles and everything. So I'm finding these older songs that I was like, wow, really good writing, and a co-writer that lives in New York. Like I want to get back into writing with the people I love, and it doesn't even matter what genre, you know. It's just beautiful music. And I wrote a song with a friend named Paul Gordon, and it's called "Praying for Love," and that was a single when I had my first solo album. And he lives in New York because he does theater. He's doing musical theater. He writes, you know, musicals, and that he's a lyricist, and he's incredible. I'd love to go and work with him again. You know, these people that have, like, looking back on my career that I've co-created with, that I just love the experience and I love the work.
Yeah.
I'd like to, like, you know, reunite with them and do that, as well as keep singing with Nikki Harris. I love her so much. And I'm working on a collaboration of more meditative music with a man named James Hara, who's a master guitarist, who's been playing in my band for a long time. But I met him in Hollywood, like when I was probably 18, and he was on the first Madonna tour with me, and he had done a tour before that with her, and he's like he plays with Alita Adams, and he was playing with Huey Lewis in the News. He's like a sideman musician, but an amazing artist in his own right. And the last few months, I kind of was going through some health challenges. I was taking time off from being in my studio. He was sending me tracks of music that I could just write, just put my headphones on, and I could write lyric, melody, really tapping into my own, invoking, calling on my own strength for healing. And that just became the theme of that record. Right now, it's not all on me.
Right.
You know, I love to have someone else to bounce things off of, you know.
Yeah.
And after the last couple records, I did everything myself. And so that's really great. And getting more into the sound healing with the music, and even more spacious. And I'm always, even when I'm taking time off, I'm still working. So it's like I've got remixers sending in tracks, and it always, the notes are always more space, just less, because even if it's electronic and there's a beat and everything, you want to be able to find that space. You want to be able to go that same place as if it's just a drone and a single vocal. I want to create that space. So I think my emphasis is just way more on that. I mean, I feel like I could write pop songs and everything, but I want my music to have a place as a tool in people's lives, you know. And I just am so inspired by the stories when people write me and say how they use the music for a birth or a death. Or one person came to me at a show and said they lost their son in an accident, and it's the only thing that got them through it. Or another person started writing poetry because of it. And that's how I feel about music, and always seeking to find music that inspires me. I could just put it on and write,
Yeah.
in my journal, or write lyrics, and just, you know, as we all are coming out and being together again, I just want to, you know, I want to live my life with as least amount of fear as possible.
Yeah.
In every way, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like my goal now. And just realizing we can all realize more of how precious and what a miracle our lives are.
Yeah.
And just strengthening myself so I could be there for other people, and for my daughter who's 13.
Right.
And she's healing from an accident. She had a horse accident. So just helping her see that vision of herself, positive affirmations, and of her being healed.
Mm.
And it's just, as we all know, it's a challenging time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, Well, fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been really interesting talking to you. And I look forward to sort of hearing sort of some more of your collaborations, because I think that's the lovely thing. And I think it's a great way of going through your life. So
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks for your support and your interest.
well, I hope you enjoyed listening to that episode of Harmonious World with my guest Donna De Lory. The link to her website is in the show notes, and you can see some of the amazing people that she has collaborated with already. The start of this podcast was Where I Find You, and now you're listening to Unbreakable, and these are both taken from Gone Beyond, Donna's latest album. Thank you for joining me once more on Harmonious World. Please do rate and review wherever you find your podcasts. That really helps. You can also buy me a coffee. The link is in the show notes. And that helps cover my costs of this podcast. Meanwhile, I hope you have a really good week and stay safe.
Unbreakable, oh Lord, is the love binds me to you.
Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.